Hey, y'all, Pastor Emil here with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is sweeter. I had my ice cream already. Haagen-Dazs bar. You turned me down.
I'm waiting for when I go home because we have fresh strawberries, vanilla ice cream, and Nutella.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That is actually a great combo. I had that exact thing in Iceland.
Oh, okay.
They got a big thing of, vanilla soft serve. Not the same exactly as the way we do it. That's their ice cream. But it was good. Fresh strawberries, cut it up, mixed it in, Nutella. Wow.
Yeah,
it was good.
It was, we were buying fresh strawberries at the grocery store, and Janet texted home and said, something, we get fresh strawberries, or do you want some fresh strawberries? And Jordan says, yeah, get Nutella. I was like, what do you need Nutella for? I mean, come on. It's fresh strawberries. Wow. I've had it, I think, the last 3 nights. I was like, I get home, I'm like, I got to get the Nutella. My problem is it gets hard. It gets hard. So it's hard to, I don't know if you can microwave it a little bit, maybe.
It gets firm, but not like hard.
Right.
Like you can still sort of mix it in. You heat it up maybe and melt it in, and it sort of melts the ice cream, and you get kind of this mix. Maybe the ice cream in Iceland is better for that
maybe
kind of thing. It's possible. It is a unique ice cream there, but very good. There's also a place on Ferret by Tulane in New Orleans. They have like healthy smoothie things and other healthy things, but they have these fancy toast things where you can get a smoothie and then a toast, where they do all kinds of fancy things, and one of them is Nutella toast.
Oh, wow.
And they put Nutella on the toast and then strawberries and bananas too.
Oh, yeah. We have bananas at the house, but I haven't put those on, so.
It was good. It was good.
And, before we went to the Walmart to buy the other stuff, we were at Sam's, and we said, well, we could get Nutella there. But, of course, you always got to buy in either, like, 5-gallon containers or whatever. I think the Nutella was in, like, a 2-pack. I was like, oh, we don't need that much Nutella. Well, maybe we do, because the little jar we bought at Walmart's almost gone.
Oh, you definitely need the full thing. Once you go down the Nutella rabbit hole.
We got it a few years ago, and we kind of went through it. Yeah, but we kind of got off the kick for a while. But
well, hopefully you don't think this is a podcast about food, but hopefully now you've had a chance to grab your brownie, your cookie, maybe even paused it and ran to the store, got some Nutella, some fresh strawberries, and you're going to mix it in with some vanilla ice cream.
And that's what we were doing the week before. Was we had bought some of those. They must have had a fundraiser at the school, and they was selling the frozen cookie dough. So we'd do like 3 or 4 of those, and as soon as they come out the oven, then the ice cream on top. Man, I think I've gained about 5-6 pounds already in the last few weeks.
All right, Jesus, you're making me hungry now. I really, really want this. All right, so last time we started talking about these parables. That was a 4-minute commercial for Nutella. We better get some sponsorship dollars. We started talking about parables. We talked about Isaiah 6. We looked at Matthew 13. And then we were going back and forth a little bit. Hey, what do we do? What's another parable? And you said, what about new wineskins parable? And at first I said, I don't think that's a parable. And it actually appears in 3 places. And if you look in Matthew 9:14 through 17, it doesn't say anything about a parable, but he does talk about this idea of new wine and new wineskins and old wineskins, and how you can't, he basically gives a similar message. But then it's also in Mark 2, and I don't think it says anything about a parable there either. So I was very confused.
Yeah, okay.
And for a few minutes, I was just looking up like, okay, where is this? Because even in the notes, usually in some of the notes in my Bible, it'll tell me, oh, this is found elsewhere in these passages. For whatever reason, it doesn't put these three together that way, the way it normally would. Like if it's the call of Levi or something, it would put it in the, hey, here are the parallel passages. Or, the guy who gets let down through the roof. It says, oh, see also Matthew and whatever, right? Didn't do that. Then Luke 33, so Matthew 9, 14 through 17, Mark 2, 18 through 22, and then Luke 5, 33 through 38 or 39. It says, and they said to him, the disciples of John fast often and offer prayers, and so do the disciples of the Pharisees, but yours eat and drink. And Jesus said to them, can you make wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in those days. He also told them a parable. No one tears a piece from a new garment and puts it on an old garment. If he does, he will tear the new, and the piece from the new will not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the new wine will burst the skins, and it will be spilled, and the skins will be destroyed. But new wine must be put into fresh wineskins. And no one, after drinking old wine, desires new, for he says the old is good. Did you read the Luke 5 one, or did you read the Mark 2, or the Matthew?
I think it was the Luke 5 one.
Okay, so then that's the one where he actually kind of calls it, or at least Luke introduces it as a parable, which makes sense because it's close. He's providing a lesson through some practical means. It's not as bizarre as the one with the seed, where like no one would do this. What he's saying is like, actually, yeah, this is what you would do, and just the basic understanding, just to give people an idea of why he would even say something like this, is like if you take a new piece of cloth and you use it to patch something that's old, and then you wash it, and the new cloth has to kind of shrink. Everything, when you wash it enough, it starts to kind of shrink over time. It's going to rip. It's just not going to hold it together the same way as if you took a cloth that had already been used. Like, so if you're going to patch up an old pair of jeans, you use an old pair of jeans, cut off a piece of that, and use that to patch the old pair of jeans. Well, in a similar way with wine ferments. And when it ferments, it gives off gas. There are these gases that are produced when all these different parts of the grape, the sugar that's in there and whatnot, it gives off, I probably should have looked into the specific scientific chemical reaction there, but it gives off oxygen, CO2,
right,
something, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it would expand the skin that they pour the wine into. Now, if you put it into an old wineskin, the old wineskin has already been stretched from previous wine that was new and allowed to ferment, or previous stuff that was put in there to ferment. If you put it in again, now it's shrunk back down, and then when you do it again, it's going to expand again. It will likely burst and make the wine spill out. You lose everything. It's just pointless. It's sort of like a paper clip. If you bend the paper clip, now it's not as strong. Or metal of any kind. If you bend the metal, it's just not as strong anymore. In order to make like steel, you bend steel or aluminum or something like that, the only way to get it back to where it was is to really make it new, meaning like you have to heat it up, melt it down, start over, and then it can be used again. So you can't really do that with an old wineskin. So this is actually like animal skin. This isn't like something that we would manufacture today, right? Where you make it so that it can actually do that. You know, you use certain kinds of chemicals and substances that are flexible for a time, maybe not forever, but maybe you could do it a bunch of times and you can reuse it. They couldn't do that. These are literally animal skins that they've got, and over time they're just deteriorating, and once you stretch it, you can't let it...
Can't heat it up or wash it or between the kind of restore it back to new or whatever, I guess.
So that's the general concept. But what the heck does that have to do with anything?
That's kind of where I was at.
Yeah. So, what was your text? You actually said something like, I've always wondered about this, or...
Yeah, I never really understood what this meant, I guess. Something like that.
Yeah. One short parable that I never really understood is the new wine and the old wineskin. But then you said today at 9:58 a.m. got new wine figured out. So why don't you enlighten us?
Man, I don't have an elaborate explanation, but my understanding is, I guess the new wine, and I have a question about that too, but like the new wine is like, I guess like the word of God. So you can't take if you're not a Christian and you're a new believer, you can't take that and put that into your old way of thinking, or you're the old wineskin, right? So you almost have to sacrifice your old self to put the new wine into it. Because if I guess my understanding is that if you put it into the old, your old self will just
explode,
trying to, I guess, reconcile or trying to make it fit into your old way of thinking, or the way you believe, or the way you've lived so far. So it's about sacrificing your old self and have a new self for the new wine. What do you think? Am I like hot, cold?
I don't think it's not true. I've actually used this this idea when talking about like church.
Mm-hmm.
You know, church is so hard to do new things in. Organizations in general, trying to do new things is very, very hard, because institutions are very much all about self-preservation and perpetuating itself, whatever it is or however it was when it started. It's really focused on perpetuating that same culture, that same way of doing things. And so when you try and do new things in churches, if a church hasn't always been outreach focused, or if it was but it became inward focused, it's really hard to try and get it back outwardly focused again. And so really there's a lot of people, I think, that have said this. The best way to grow churches and to grow communities of faith is to start new ones, because it's really hard to put new wine in old wineskins, right? You're taking something new, you have an influx of a lot of new people, you have a new culture that you want to try and cultivate. If you try and stuff that into an old wineskin, it bursts the wineskin. So I've used it like that, which I'm not sure is really the point of this parable. I think it certainly can help us think that way, but he's talking about fasting. He's fasting and prayer, and how all these other people they don't follow Jesus. They're disciples of John, or they're disciples of other people, and they're all doing these things and feeling, whoa.
He does
sad.
he does mention the bridegroom though, so I think that's kind of where maybe how he got to the wine, the celebration maybe, or
it does, yeah. But he is saying, like, how can you be like those old ways? How can you be in this mourning period, this fasting period, this time of repentance in a very acute way, focused way, when the bridegroom is actually here?
Right.
When you're waiting for the bridegroom, yeah, there's this period of preparation and austerity, right? But he's like, but the bridegroom shows up, the party's on, right? So he's talking about initially just that, like, hey, we don't do it the way you do it. We're just doing it different. Something new is taking place. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. This is, I think, in Isaiah, probably some other places I'm not thinking of right now. But then he gets into the thing about the wine and the wineskins. And I think what he's saying, well, first of all, almost all I think all of Scripture, really, but particularly the parables, it's really saying something about Jesus. So what is it saying about Jesus when he gives this parable? And I think it is along the lines of what you're talking about, that it has to be new. Something, he's doing something completely new. He's not working within the old. He's creating something completely new. He's creating a new, not organization, but community. Now, of course, at the same time, he is also working within the old thing. I mean, he's a Jew. He's a first century Jew. He talks like a Jew. He acts like a Jew. He celebrates and fasts, and he's done all these other things, Passover and whatnot, like a Jew. But then at the same time, he's not doing everything they're doing. He's not worrying about cleansing rituals and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's starting to throw people for a loop. And he's just saying, hey, I'm creating something new. I got new disciples, and we're doing things in new ways because I'm new. You've never seen anybody like me before. I'm not your average teacher, rabbi, prophet, right? I am the Son of God, which I don't need cleansing. I don't need some of these things. But anyway, I don't know if that makes...
So it's kind of sort of prophetic, or just... like a little glimpse into what's happening, or what's happening and what more is going to happen. Maybe that, like you said, the old ways, his new way of doing things is not going to fit into the old ways of what they were doing. So expect this new wine going into some new organization or this new method or way of doing going forward. So this is like almost, about the church, or maybe, or individually. Like I was thinking more of it individually.
So,
but I guess it could be the church as well.
There's a note here in my Bible, Lutheran Study Bible, which is kind of helpful a lot of times. Has a note here for this section. It just says, Jesus fulfills God's promise to make all things new. He makes fishermen and a tax collector into disciples. He makes a leper and a paralytic whole, and he forgives sins. Unfortunately, some resist such changes, not only in Jesus' day, but also in our lives. That is why he calls us to embrace the gospel wholly. Jesus' astounding promise is this: whatever we leave behind for the sake of the kingdom of God, so that's kind of along your lines, will be replaced with much more in this age and with eternal life in the age to come. So maybe there is something like you got to leave behind this old way of thinking. The parables do really just burst your brain about, like, with the one we did last week, right? Who sows seed like that?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. And I think really the church would do well to really examine that in a way that it probably hasn't before. They always look at the soil and they talk about, oh, well, you got to be good soil. Be good soil for the word. Yeah, well, that's not really what it's about. It's about this guy who looks like an idiot because he's just throwing stuff out there. And here we've got churches and, committees and all kinds of denominational hierarchy stuff that they do all kinds of studies and they do all kinds of, right? Like, where's the right place for all? I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. It does seem wise to do that. But at the same time, the sower just sowed seed and he threw it everywhere, right? Blowing our mind about this new way of doing. This is almost like it's explaining the fact that, hey, everything's new. Like it's all this new weird stuff. And if you try to do it within the old ways, the whole thing will just burst and you'll lose everything. And really, that is kind of how it works in real life, I think. Paul eventually stops going to the Jews because they spend so much time trying to kill him. He just finally is like, you know what? I'm going to go to the Gentiles. And it was
putting his new wine into old wineskin. So
exactly. I think that, but that doesn't mean nobody went to the Jews. It's just.
Well, read the end though. Then that very last part kind of threw me for another.
No one after drinking old wine desires new, for he says the old is good.
Yeah. So that just means, I guess, the people are settled in their ways and they're used to the old wine and they don't want the new wine.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of a paradoxical statement in the sense that old wine is actually better, right? I mean, you want it aged, you want it just right. If you have it too soon, it's just not really all that good.
It's so confusing. Maybe I really still don't get it.
Well, but remember what we talked about last time. I mean, the point I think is you're not supposed to just get it. It's not straightforward, smack you in the face. This is exactly what it means, because you're supposed to chew on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to meditate on it. You're supposed to reflect on it and discuss it and approach God with it and go, what does this mean, God? It's meant to draw out the people who are going to be drawn out, and the people that couldn't care less just, I don't need to understand that. That's too complicated. I'm just going to keep drinking my old wine. It's just fine. Mm-hmm. I'm going to just keep living my life the way I've always lived it. I'm just going to keep sticking with my old ways of thinking, my old beliefs. I don't need anything new.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a sense, with what you were saying earlier, it's not that I've just not heard it said quite like that. But that's why we have the conversation. I think there's a lot to that. You can't just take Jesus and put him into something that is not Jesus. He will blow up the whole thing. He just does,
Mm.
But here's the thing about wine, right? Well, here's the thing about Jesus and the parables. It's always flipping things on their head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, a sower goes out to seed. He just throws it all over the place. Who does that? Nobody. Oh, no one after drinking old wine desires new, for he says the old is good. Of course, people will go, well, yeah, older wine is better wine. Until they've tasted the new wine, this new wine. Because when Jesus made 180 gallons of wine to save a party, that was the best wine.
Right.
And just like in that story, who does this? Who saves the best wine for last after everybody's already wasted?
Mm-hmm.
You don't save the good wine then. You do the good wine in the beginning, and then when they're trashed and they can't tell the difference, you give them the crap. They won't be able to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Jesus flips it, right? And here we go. Jesus flips it again. You think the older wine is better, but it's not. This is way better.
So then the other thought I had about was, is there a reason he used wine there? Because haven't you said that wine is kind of a symbol for joy?
Mm-hmm. Well, joy is definitely a part of this because he's talking about this idea of the disciples of John and others who are fasting and praying and doing all these spiritual disciplines, living very austere kind of lives. And here these guys are just having a good time hanging out with tax collectors and sinners. And I'm sure, like when the tax collector Matthew or Levi, when Jesus calls him, there's a feast afterward. If you look in actually Matthew 9, which is where this comes up originally. When I talked about it earlier, we were talking about how it shows up in Matthew 9 also. The verses right before that are, as Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth. This is Matthew 9, verse 9. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. And as Jesus reclined at table in the house, whose house? Matthew's house. Behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus, and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard it, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." Then the disciples of John came to him, saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Like, this must have been one heck of a party. And maybe it was during a time I didn't dig that deep to try and figure that out.
Yeah, I didn't go back to the other one.
But maybe there was some kind of special time for fasting going on, and they're like, whoa, 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 Jesus, you're hanging out with tax collectors and sinners, and they know how to throw a party, right? The religious people are always uptight. I mean, we are. Well, except Lutherans. Lutheran pastors are an interesting bunch, usually quite shocking to most Christians out there and even non-Christians. There's an expression I've heard, wherever you find 4 Lutherans, you'll find a 5th. A 5th of whiskey, maybe, a 5th of Jack Daniels.
Got a cigar
Scotch,
too.
cigars. Yes, exactly. I was actually a couple of weeks ago, last week, cigars with a bunch of Lutheran pastors, not just the pastors, but the leaders. Like, these are the, doing cigars.
You're about to burst some wineskins there.
Maybe.
Or is that the patch that was sewn on?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But yeah, so why is it that Jesus is allowing people to have a good time? That's sort of where this comes from. And I do think, like you said, wine is a symbol of joy. It comes up in Amos, the prophet. It comes up in Joel, other places. Isaiah brings this out. Like, what we are hoping for, the people of God have hoped for millennia, is a feast with a crap ton of wine. In some of those passages, it says the mountains will drip with wine. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so abundant. The joy, the feasting, the celebrating is just going to be so amazing. And then Jesus shows up, and when he turns water into wine, he is saying, I think, I'm the guy. That period of time that you've been waiting for, it's begun. And here we are again now with this whole thing about new wine, new wineskins, fasting, not fasting. It's about Jesus.
Yeah, but the Cana thing with the wine too. From what I understand, he made the wine in the jars that were used purification. So here he is making wine, which is joy. So the joy is going to purify the
in the old cisterns. So
well, no, I mean, I guess the wine itself is replacing the joy is replacing the purification, or well, Jesus is the wine.
That's a good point. I think, yeah. So what was the purification for? Well, you're a sinner. You're a lousy, no good, rotten, poor, miserable sinner. So you better purify yourself before you XYZ, whatever.
Right.
And then Jesus takes that, puts in the water that would be used to remind everybody about how miserable they are, and he turns it into joy. He turns it into the thing. It's also the blood of Jesus and wine and all that, that mixing there too, that he's using. This is pointing to his death, I think, also, the wine, and then the supper, the meal that he's going to give us to share until we see him again. All of that, yes, I guess there was more to this than I thought, just those few verses there. We could be more joyful, and this is why Jesus laughed. See? I told you.
Okay.
I told you.
I'm not giving up yet.
Uncle.
Oh, that's funny.
So one other interesting thing, besides the fact that, yeah, we should probably have a good time. Although there is a passage where he says, you will fast eventually. Like right now I'm here, you will mourn and you will fast and you will all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Is that just during like the crucifixion and the mourning until they see him again when he's risen? Or is that now until the resurrection of all flesh, the return of Christ? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that would be far too miserable for us if we weren't supposed to have some joy now.
Yeah, 2,000 years worth of ongoing.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the other thing about no one after drinking old wine desires new, for he says the old is good, right? Older is better. The new wine from the bridegroom himself, isn't that really older anyway? Isn't Jesus before all things was with the Father in the beginning? So the new wine is actually the older wine. Except we're too stubborn and
to know that it's the it's the oldest wine.
Yeah.
It's been around since creation, or whenever. The beginning.
Yeah. I don't know. But another one of those, like,
I keep thinking here Billy Joel in my head. Rather
bottle of red.
Rather laugh with the sinners and cry with the saints.
Yeah. Well, that's.
See,
there's a lot of truth to that. I think at Open Arms here we got a lot of people that love to laugh with the sinners. Yeah, no, there's a lot of joy, just having a good time. You know, maybe we could balance it out a little bit with some focused discipline. I mean, you're doing pretty good. I mean, this is like a regular Wednesday thing now. That's,
I guess. Is this like supposed to be the fun part, or is this supposed to be
let's make it both.
Okay.
Maybe we should have just had wine and, you know.
That wouldn't be good. A little too much joy, probably.
Yeah. I do have a couch in my office, so I could just
Sleep
sleep
it all
there.
on.
Yeah, sleep it
Yeah,
all.
you got drive hands-free driving or whatever in your car. So
I do, but
yeah, right. I know.
one day, yeah.
Mm.
My friend just sent me a little meme, and it says, "You're hiding a Tesla in your garage, aren't you?" And you just outed me.
Oh, thanks. I thought the world knew by now, but
yeah, I mean, I
well, they doxed everybody while you were.
theoretically, but
I couldn't find the site to see if your name was on the list, but
I think they took it down. I think so. I
Yeah.
looked it up after you said something, and they took it down.
Well, they were doing this thing where, sometimes when some crime happens, well, we're not going to name the criminal because that's just going to give them so it's the same kind of thing. The news outlets everywhere I read it, it was like, yeah, they put out this website, but nobody would name what it was. It's like, we're not going to post it out there because we don't want people to go and look, which is fine. I get it, but it's like, maybe.
Worked out for me.
Yeah.
I think, hopefully.
Maybe.
Although now, whoever listens to this will forever know that, yes, I got a Tesla last year, the end of last year. No, long before all of this chaos, and it's actually been years in the making. I still need to go to this guy around the corner here. Oh, now I'm outing this guy.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually a few of them. There's a bunch of them here.
Yeah.
It's St. Tammany Parish, though. Come on.
Well, it's go to the airport, New Orleans airport, and go to the, what do they call it? The phone lot. You ever do that?
Oh, no.
So you can just park there temporarily, and the person calls you, okay, Elaine, I got
Yeah,
my
I know
bag,
what
and
it
it's
is.
swing around. Well, that's also where all the taxi cabs are, and the Ubers and the Lyfts and all those things. It's a ton of Teslas.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm thinking, they're doing all this stuff, and all these guys are driving them and, making a living off of it. They're going, better not be messing with my living.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Yeah, it's not a wise thing that these people are doing, but
No.
I don't really understand it either. It's like, what do you, it's like, let's do this random thing to this person. I mean, sort of random, but because he's doing something else. It's like, I don't know. It's just a cheap shot, low blow kind of a thing. But anyway.
Well, it's it's why we are where we are, because the left didn't have people on the left policing the left. And the same thing will happen if no one on the right polices the right. And I'm not saying there aren't going to be mistakes made, but I think there's not nearly as much support for the more this kind of stuff goes on. Yeah, I think it just helps Trump and Elon, and this is why the reason why Martin Luther King Jr. was successful in his civil rights movement was because he didn't say, oh, well, but this is such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw somebody, I think it was like a father and a son, a pastor, and his son, he posted something on Facebook like, it was sort of a snarky thing like, tell me how these are the good guys. Explain something about the vandals, terrorists as they're being called now, which is probably not that far off. And I think his son responded with boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh, started a family drama on Facebook. But he said, property and whatever, this, that, and the other thing is not nearly as important as humans. And I'm like, sounds like something the right would say, actually.
Right.
In a different set of circumstances. But you see that, like, at all costs, we can achieve whatever ends that we want to do. And as soon as people start doing that, then whichever side, it just ends up being bad.
Well, California just named a law after the guy who shot the insurance president, CEO in the back.
Mangione or something like that?
Yeah, they're calling it the Mangione law or whatever. It has something to do with insurance and capping insurance or something. I don't remember exactly what the law is supposed, but it has something to do with that. But they named it after the guy who shot the guy in the back. It's like, talk about flipping things upside down. Anyway, but
yeah, well, we're definitely living through very interesting, pivotal, consequential times.
Yeah, it's like one of those Etch-a-Sketches, you had the thing all set up, drawn, and it's like they just picked it up and just kind of went like this.
Something had to get shook. And when I was in Iceland, I mentioned that before. I was in Iceland a couple of weeks ago for about 10 days, 8 days maybe, trying to get some of our books into stores in Iceland. Nola's Icelandic Adventure right here. Hard to see. It's a little bit further away from the camera. We got a bunch of publications here. Open Arms, Connect People to Jesus. Nobody's Nola. Nola's Icelandic Adventure. She takes a trip to Iceland. You can learn about Iceland. And we got it in 5 stores. Cool. Well, 5 companies, and one of them was putting it in like 3 or 4 of their stores. So actually might be more than that. But while I was in Iceland, as soon as people knew I was an American, almost without fail, they made a point to say, "I hate Trump, I was like, well, really? I was wondering about that. It's just so like Europe is very, I know there's a lot of craziness going over there, some differences of opinion, but there is a very strong left-leaning current there in general. There has been all my life. And I tried to explain to them at some point, because some of these people ended up being family, and I just said, you guys have a really nice life. Mm-hmm. They do. They don't have everything that we have in... they don't have goods that are available to them at low prices like we have. But they also don't have...
The tariffs may change that.
Well, but they had tariffs.
No, I'm talking about
they've had tariffs. Yeah, no, I know. They changed all of that stuff, but they've always had those things.
Right.
They've always penalized American companies and American entrepreneurs. And that has been America's way of really kind of actually blessing the world, I think, by just keeping our tariffs very low and allowing them to screw us over as much as they want. But what I tried to explain to them was that, listen, I know these people. These are good people. These are not what you characterize them as is not really accurate, and it's not helpful. And they have been left behind. A lot of people have been left behind. The middle class 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago was like, I think somebody tried to, I'm not going to get this right, but somebody tried to tell me at one point that, if you took what it was like to be a middle class worker in the 50s and 60s and you kind of tried to keep up with inflation, you would have to be paying a factory worker like $300,000, a low-educated, low-skilled labor force person, like $200,000-$300,000 a year, to give them the kind of lifestyle that they had then, which was you had a good job with benefits, you had time off, you had enough money for a couple of cars maybe, you had enough money maybe for a boat and a little house on the lake, and, at least that's what the case this person was trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
And this was long before any of this, maybe maybe not that long. It was before, certainly, Trump 2.0, before Biden, maybe during Trump 1, I don't know. But, yeah, this whole segment of people have been kind of left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that we're kind of onto something. Whether or not this is the way to do it or not, I don't know. Certainly anything that changes can be scary, but it's usually scariest for the people that are already doing just fine.
Mm.
Those are the people that get the most scared.
Right. You got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You got nothing to lose, but if you have a little bit, you don't want to lose it.
So, and I was actually, Simon Sinek was, you know who Simon Sinek is? He's like a podcaster, a leadership guy, business guy, entrepreneurial guy. I was listening to something from him, and, you know, he was talking about that very thing, like that idea that, you know, if you're trying to create change, which maybe relates to the whole new wine and old wineskins idea, is like you can't force people to jump on board with your new plan. People just don't want to do that because they're doing fine. The reason why the things are, the status quo is the way the status quo is that it kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
It's not maybe working perfectly, or at least not perfectly for everybody, but for some people it must be working really well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, you find that out, especially when you start to try and change things and they go, whoa, 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 whoa. Why are you changing something that is making my life great?
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually talking about a specific strategy that when you're trying to implement some kind of change, transformational change, your goal should only be to get the 15 to 18% early adopter types. Forget about everybody else. If they're not an early adopter, just say, okay, fine, yeah, you don't want my product, or you don't want my idea. You don't want to work with me or for me, or me to work for you, or my services or whatever. No, you don't. You want the people that are like, I see it. I see the future. I see the new wine. I see it's better than the old wine, even though old wine is usually better. I see that the new wine is actually older wine, or however you want to put it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's, I think, kind of where we are politically, too, is that people freaking out because it's change. But they're...
Yeah, and the group that was getting left behind, like you said, is really the younger group. You know, I've just, for the last couple of years at least, I mean, having kids that are in that age range, but I've noticed there's just so many complaints on time, and they're so angry at the quote boomer generation because you got the house and you got all this fancy stuff and you got your 401k and blah blah blah.
Inflation is really a tax,
and they're like, but I can't. Yeah, how much would I have to make to even buy a starter home if you can find one, because the housing shortage is so much, but.
Well, and that's
so, you know, they should be like, some of those people should really be the early adopters of this. But yeah, I don't know.
And the inflation is intentionally in the system. It's not necessary for the system. So inflation is something that, you know, benefits the government, basically.
What gets me is early on when I was starting my career, there was a guy there at work that invested money. I mean, I didn't have nothing to invest, but you know, listening to him read the Wall Street Journal, blah blah blah, and he had money in the stock market. And I said, well, you know, the inflation was going up or something at the time. I said, well, you know, maybe the inflation needs to come down and go lower, and then, you know, if the prices of everything went below what they are now, then people could afford it. And he goes, no, you don't want that to happen, because that's devaluation, and that's a bad thing. But then I heard a guy the other day saying that's not.
I don't know. I think that's a bill of goods we've been sold.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
so. And he took it. I'm sure he learned it probably in school. that and that mentality has really driven. You know, you want 2% inflation.
Yeah.
And then, so anyway, I can't explain I wasn't thinking I was going to say anything about that, but yeah, that was even going to come up. But yeah, there was another guy that was presenting the fact that, and he was mentioning the time, I guess, right after, I guess, the stock market crashed, that time in the U.S. when things like that happened, or maybe it was right after the war, World War II or something. I can't remember the time frame, but anyway, he says, yeah, it's really what boomed that generation you were talking about, where you could have, the husband working,
the wife staying at home.
You could afford a house, you could afford a car, you could afford a vacation or two,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know.
I think, I forget if this came up in the All In podcast with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, but I think I forget if he tapped into that or something else. But
you have to see where I can find. If I can find that, I'll send it to you. But
it's just we got to pray. We got to trust Jesus, no matter what. We got to call out whichever side we lean towards. Because the right will never change because the left called them out, and the left will never change because the right calls them out,
right?
Because that's part of the game, right? And at the same time, there's just so much false stuff out there. Like like they've been really going after Elon and Tesla, and I don't necessarily agree with everything Elon says or does, but I have been, I've invested small amounts a little bit in the market at various points, and so I had a few shares of Tesla, and so I paid attention to it. And this whole thing right now about how the brand damage and everything, and how they just announced deliveries today that were lower than anyone expected, and blah, 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 blah. And nobody is saying the most obvious thing. They are saying nothing about the fact that this was all on purpose. Like, everything's fine. It's all on purpose that they stop producing the Model Y, and then they start producing the next Model Y, a new version of the Model Y, new wine. You gotta change the wineskins. You gotta change the whole production line. So they stop for like a month. So if you're not producing the most popular car in the world, like literally, there are more Model Ys sold last year than any other car.
Even the Ford F-150.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But nobody talks about that because it's the back and forth, right? So how do you even, like, if you should not believe anything you hear from any news source at all. Like, you just confirm it or don't, or I try to just back away from it and focus on Jesus, because in the end, whoever your favorite is, and it may be for very good reasons, whatever your favorite team is or your favorite player, so to speak, it may be their time. Like, God may definitely be using them in this moment and for whatever it is that they're championing. But at some point, they're going to be the bad guy, because that's just how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
So there are too many of us just blindly championing a team or a person. And
that's what they always say. We like to build people up, and then we like to
tear them down.
So,
yeah.
And Elon's been at the top for a few years now.
Yeah.
As the richest man, and then all the rockets and the cars and everything he does, it's been overwhelming. So whatever it took to get people to start wanting to tear him down, it's happening now,
Yeah.
It just surprised me that you see these people protesting him, and It's these old ladies.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, really? I don't know.
Yeah, there's
But that's fine. Anybody's okay to protest, but it's just that's not the group of people that I expected to see out there.
well, exactly. So just look at how your political allegiance can turn you into, from this nice, sweet little old lady, somebody's grandma, into the most vicious, nasty, what that
They were
you've
very
ever
polite
seen.
about it.
Well, there have been some I've seen that were not.
Okay. All right.
And there was,
Maybe I saw the ones that were safe for TV.
yeah, no, they get pretty nasty about it. And, I just don't think that's not new wine. That's old wine.
Mhm.
That's the old ways. That's not the way of Jesus. That's the Martin Luther King Jr. idea I was getting at, right? I mean, he was, I know there's like different opinions on him, and he's not a perfect guy. He was just as bad with the ladies as JFK was, right? So everybody has, we have to be careful because, God uses terrible, flawed, imperfect people because that's the only kind of people there are, right?
Mhm.
But one of the principles that he had in that movement was that, he wasn't going to compromise for the sake of the goal.
Mhm.
He was going to let them beat the snot out of him. He was going to let them throw him in prison. He was going to let them do it on television for the world to see. And it's what won the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
I mean, that just like, in a sense, what people are doing to Elon and Tesla owners and everything is actually going to end up winning. They're going to win, more likely to win, because people are being nasty and terrible to them. And if they just don't respond back that way, it will probably work out for their position, whether you agree with it or not.
Mhm.
Don't compromise those kinds of things for the sake of anything. Because that's not, there is nothing in this world of, especially the political world, of power and, I don't know what, power, basically. Just, it's a power thing. It's all about power. And that's why Jesus says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and to God what's God. Why? Because Caesar is about power, earthly power, law and order, structure, justice, government, kind of like keeping things from going off the rails. Not
Mhm.
perfect, not going to happen. Keeping things from going off the rails, no matter what system you have, no matter who's in power, corruption, evil, all kinds of stuff that will happen, right? But God, right? Jesus, you live your life in the ways of Jesus. You turn the other cheek. You love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. You enjoy the new wine
Mhm.
in new wineskins. You do these things, and
While listening to the gospel panel, they were talking about parables, and I can't remember at which point. It may have been after they talked about this one, or it was a few others that they were going through. But Dennis Prager had this story. He has a call-in show, or he had a call-in show, and he said he just takes calls from anybody. People want to ask him questions, whatever. So, a mother called in, and I don't know if she was she had a daughter, and I don't know if they were Jewish or Christian, but they, moral people, or had a set of morals that they live by, I guess. And the mother was like, well, what do we do? My daughter wants, has all the grades and she's done all the things, but now she's got to write this paper to try to get into this prestigious school that she wants to go to, but she knows that if she writes it the way she really believes, then she's not getting in. So she's asking, Mom, what I do? Do I write some paper tailored to answer, to tell a story or to answer whatever, the paper has to do to fit what she knows they want to hear, just so she can get into this prestigious school? And his reply was, never. He says, why would you want to go to a school that you have to compromise your principles to go to? Never do that. And then once you write that and you get there, how many more times are you going to be compromising your principles to stay there or to get through classes? It's like, no, if that school requires you to compromise your principle, it's not a prestigious, good school to go to,
Well, what you're saying is you're going to become that.
Right. And that's what they did say that.
Because they're basically forcing you to.
Yeah.
And
that's why I think Jordan Peterson stepped in and he said that they were kind of discussing this back and forth. He says, yeah, you don't, because you start mocking in them and then you become them, or, emulating, then you become them because you can't get away from it. You've taught yourself to become that, you taught yourself how to reply with those answers.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, I thought that was interesting and it makes sense. I mean, but man,
Well, but that's, there's Bible passages about that too. People with itching ears, they just want to hear what they want to hear. And, prophets saying what they know the king wants to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Jeremiah who's like, no, I got to tell it like it is. And what does he get for it? He gets no good deed goes unpunished, right? You spoke the truth, you did what God wanted, and you got slapped around for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard thing, but again, people. So you go where it's received. Back to the Simon Sinek idea.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that are just never going to jump on board, or at least not until there's this critical mass, right? So you talked about the bell curve. I forget the name for it exactly, but basically you got early adopters, you got the majority or early majority, late majority, and then the nevers, who basically get forced into it because the world changes around them, and they don't have a choice. He's like, you focus on those early adopters, and then once they go first, then the people that are happy to try it as long as someone else has tried it first jump on, and then you get the second group of those, and I'm not getting that all perfectly. It was like a 5-minute clip of a speech he did, and I just randomly tapped on it this morning. God obviously wanted it. He just put it there, right? Because I don't know. I mean, I've watched one or two of his things, but there's no reason why that should have been there in the recommended things this morning. But you can't force some of these new ideas. People just have to take it up themselves. You be you. You bring the new thing wherever you go, and you find the kindred people. Look for there aren't a whole lot of schools that are very open to new ways of thinking. But man, yeah, why should you not be you? Why should you not be able to be a Christian and have those kinds of, right? Just living in such weird times.
Yeah.
Weird times. So, anyway, we are not exactly on wineskins anymore.
Well, I think I have a better understanding of what the wineskins and the new wine, and so that's good, because that just always seemed kind of bizarre. I'm not a wine person per se, so I know they put wine in barrels and blah blah blah, and it ages and all this kind of stuff, and I knew about some of the chemical processes, but Yeah, I knew there's something else in there that he's trying to tell us. So.
All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it there. For those of you still awake, paying attention, great to be with you. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe and all that. And don't forget about these publications over here. Nobody's Nola, Nola's Icelandic Adventure, Open Arms, Connecting People to Jesus. Matthew 9, 14 through 17, Mark 2, 18 through 22, Luke 5, 33 through 39. I mean, maybe not the definitive answer for all things new wine, but hopefully something for you to chew on for a little while. And that is, again, what these are designed for. The parables are meant for you to chew on, and it's really supposed to be telling us something about Jesus, always, forever. The parables, the entire scripture is about Jesus some way, somehow. And what does that mean for us? Well, Jesus was doing things new. He was going to pay for everybody's sins himself, and grace, mercy, and forgiveness was going to reign, not just for Jewish people, but for all people, all nations. And man, that's a good thing. So, all right, y'all, catch you later. Don't forget, ice cream is sweet. Jesus is sweeter. Taste and see that the Lord is good. See ya.